Hello everyone, this is Elijah Pohl with Diamond Detail, and today we're going to go over just real briefly. Hopefully I'm not going to make this any more than a 5-minute video, so I'm not wasting too much of your time, but hopefully this is educational in one way or another, just for basic maintenance on how to care for your car. And this goes for whether your car has been paint corrected and coated with C-Quartz. This specific vehicle has been covered, completely wrapped in ClearGuard Nano paint protection film. But you'd still care for it the same way. So this process and these techniques are going to be used for basically any type of detail that you get through me. First off, we'll go over products and tools, whatever, and run through that real quick, and then we'll go through a real brief, quick demo. So first off, you're going to have your 2 buckets, and this method with the 2 buckets is going to be what's called a rinseless method. With this rinseless method, you're going to be using 2 buckets. One's going to have your rinse water, one's going to have your soap water or a wash solution. Whether you're using something like Echo waterless wash or the Reset auto shampoo, which we'll go over in just a second. But in your buckets, you're going to see these grit guards, and these sit on the bottom of the bucket, as you can see here. This keeps you from having to pick up with your wash mitt. After washing a panel, of course it's going to be dirty, and whenever it goes back into these buckets, you're going to want to scrub it against the grit guard, and that loosens up and lets all that dirt and soiling fall to the bottom of the bucket. You don't pick it back up and put it on the next panel that you're trying to clean, and therefore you're working backwards. So first off, with these 2 buckets, you have both grit guards in each. Your wash solution bucket is going to have 3 gallons plus or minus if you're doing this method. 3 gallons, give or take a little bit, and you're going to put your Echo waterless wash. Now this goes in it at 3 gallons with 1 ounce. 1 ounce to 3 gallons. In your rinse bucket, you might have 2 gallons in there of just rinse water. Some people like to add waterless wash solution to that as well, just to add extra lubrication. I myself do that, but it's not completely necessary. So with that, that kind of is our rinseless method. Now, the way that I wash cars, I use a combination of both methods, being the rinseless method, and this would be your waterless method. So if you were to take a microfiber towel and just spray it on the surface, and then wipe it off with a microfiber towel, and then go and buff it dry with a separate clean microfiber towel, that's going to be your waterless wash method. I like to use a combination of both, and the reason why I feel like it's a heck of a lot safer that way, and then you avoid having to do laundry once a week with having so many microfibers dirtied for one waterless wash. So those 2 buckets there with your wash mitt, and I didn't explain the wash mitt, but this is or a wash sponge. I shouldn't say mitt. Mitt's something you stick your hand in, but the good thing about this wash sponge is that it has a long nap to it. There's a lot of fibers, and it has somewhere for that dirt to go after you're done, wiping down your panel or cleaning it. It has somewhere for that soiling to go. So you pick it up off of there, and whenever you go in your bucket, then you're able to clean it off in the grit guard and then start all over. But that's the bucket and the wash mitt right there. Echo waterless wash. You see that? Hopefully it shows up on camera. This could be used, like I said, the rinseless method in your bucket as a waterless wash. It can also be used as a clay bar lubricant and a quick detailer. So all surfaces, wheels, rubber, plastic, paint, glass. It could be used on all exterior surfaces. So this is a very versatile product, and you don't have to have a cabinet full of 12 different items just to do one simple thing. So this is great. After the waterless wash, we'll go over a reload application. This is a spray sealant that you're going to do every 4 to 6 weeks, I'd say, depending on how often you drive the car and how many miles it sees. This is going to add a layer of protection just to kind of extend the life of your C-Quartz nano coating or the paint protection film. Now again, it's not 100% necessary, but for as cheap as this stuff is and how quick it is to apply, you'll see in just a few, it is well worth it and very, very cheap maintenance, like I said, extends the life of both the coating and the film. And given how much you spent on paint correction and the coating or the film, it's wise to just do this and keep up on it. Now the waterless wash is going to be used doing this method for whenever your car isn't extremely dirty. Now if you have mud caked on the whole side of it, then it's probably not going to be safe enough for this method. This is just great because if you keep up on it, it's nice because it could be really quick. You don't have to bust out the pressure washer and the hose and go through all that mess outside. This is nice because you can do it in the comfort of your own garage with some music playing or whatever. So if your car is a little too dirty for this method, and you again, it's best to be safe. Better safe than sorry. So if it's questionable, then you might as well just break out the buckets again and do a full-blown hose wash with a lot of water, just because that's going to be your safest bet there. And it's just a judgment call you're going to have to make. But that's your reset shampoo. So we'll go over this real quickly. I don't have 3 gallons mixed up in here just because this is a quick demo. But on this bucket, this line right here is going to indicate about 3 gallons or so. Okay, so right here I have mixed up the waterless wash, and the dilution on this is 1 ounce to 15 parts water. So if you have a 32 ounce bottle, then of course you're just throwing 2 ounces in it, filling the rest up with water. And with both the rinseless method and the waterless, I like to use purified water, and that's just because if I leave the water on there too long and it happens to dry, I'm not having to worry about minerals being left behind and water spotting either the film or the C-quartz coating. So just an extra step in trying to prevent damage to the car, and having to look at an eyesore like water spots, etc. So in here is 15 parts water to 1 part waterless wash. Again, 1 ounce in 3 gallons of water here in your wash or soap bucket, and in your rinse you're just going to obviously just have rinse water. Now this one's completely empty. Again, this is already a clean car, and we're just going over something real quickly. But always shake up the waterless wash really well. It tends to separate a little bit, and it's always wise to just shake up any product that you have just in case it separates a bit. So right here, we're going to go ahead and mist the surface. And once it starts dripping down like that, then you're probably applying a little bit too much. Now the idea is that you could do this in your garage and you're not stepping in puddles of solution or water and this and that. You want it to actually stay on the surface, obviously, because this is your lubricant. This is what you're using as a tool to safely remove that dirt and soiling. So just mist it on there. Make sure that you have enough to get the job done. Again, we're not trying to be stingy here. This stuff is super cheap, and it's much better to go through bottles of this than to have to reapply film to a fender or repaint correct it and recoat it. So just spray enough on there just to get it pre-soaked, and get that dirt loosened up a bit, and then add the lubricant on there. So once that's done, then you'll take your wash mitt that's been soaking in the wash soap. Now you want it to be wet, but not dripping wet. Again, you want your bucket to, you want your work area to stay clean. You don't want to be tracking water everywhere. So as long as it's filled with the wash solution and it's nice and wet, then you can go ahead and proceed to washing it. So the way that you're going to wash it is just with the weight of your hand and the weight of the sponge. And you're going to go back and forth in that direction. And the reason why is that if you happen to scratch your car in this process, that it's better to scratch your car going in a singular direction as opposed to a circular, because the circular scratches as you're going to see from all angles. Now that's a reason why we're just using the weight of our hand and the sponge, just because, especially after it's been C-quartz coated, or you have film like Clearguard Nano that's extremely hydrophobic and has the self-clean properties to it. It's not going to be difficult to clean this. Dirt and whatever else should release itself from the surface very, very easily. So again, you're just going over it real lightly, especially the first time. And I don't know if you caught that, but that was the first round. And the reason why I don't like the wash mitts and I like the wash sponge is because you just cleaned off with one side, with little to no pressure. Then you can flip it over and go over it again. You go over it again with the clean side, and then you're basically safe to go into dry now. So once I'm done washing this part of the panel, and you're gonna have to split it up. Like the hood could be 3 or 4 sections. The fender could be 1 or possibly 2. But once you're done with this, you're gonna go into your wash bucket, your rinse bucket, excuse me, your rinse bucket, and you're gonna put the wash sponge at the bottom, and you're going to be so you're going to put this in the rinse bucket, and you're going to scrub this on the bottom of the bucket. And this is again going to release that dirt and let it fall to the bottom of your rinse bucket. Once that's done, then you can throw it in your wash. I like to give it another go on the grit guard in the wash bucket, just to be extra sure. And then I go, flip it over, back and forth, and scrub it off there. Once that's done, this would be your drying towel that you're going to be getting from me in one of your packages. For the purposes of this demo, of course, I'm going to use my own. But you'll take your dry towel, and it's a fairly large dry towel. I like to use it has a short nap side and a more plush, thick nap side. I like to use the thick nap side. And then now that you went over it twice with each side of the wash sponge, then you can be sure that the surface is completely clean, and then you can dry it. And again, I'm using the same kind of technique back and forth if I'm going to dry it. Now you could either dry it this way, or some like to, depending on how anal you want to get with it. Some people like to put it on there and pat dry, just so that you're not dragging it across. That's how you dry it. And then you'll just move on to the next section. I like to do the entire wash itself first, and then come back with the dry towel and pick up any areas that are still wet, and do my final touch-up that way, just so that I'm not creating, because I'm not sure if it picks up on camera, but you'll see that there's some overspray here just from cleaning this. And the other side to it too is that whenever I clean this section, my wash sponge has only gone up to right here. Okay. Now, whenever I go to dry it, I'm not going to touch that edge, because that edge is going to be dirty. So I'm not going to dry on that edge. I'm drying a little bit before it, just so that I'm not catching any of that dirt into my dry towel. So what I like to do again is I like to wash the entire car and then come back and use my dry towel to touch up and buff off any sort of residue. Now this might be a little bit streaky. It might be a little streaky whenever you go to do the whole car. Whenever you get this process down, it shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes. By the time you make your way back here, this soapy, rinseless, waterless wash solution is likely going to be mostly dry. And if it dries on the surface, no big deal. It buffs off fairly easily, and that's what you're going to use one of these towels for. So one of these towels has both sides, but it has sealed satin edges. And you'll just, now that you know it's completely clean, you're safe to do these circular buffing motions here, just to remove any sort of streaking. If it does happen to still have streaking, what you can do is use a little spritz of water, and just missed it. Go over it, it'll remove some of that film, that leftover residue, is what I should say, and then you just buff it, and it'll be completely streak free and have a really nice shine, high gloss effect to it. So Once that's done, you're pretty much good to go. But if you're due for an application of reload spray sealant, 4 to 6 weeks, like I said, then you're going to move on to that. And again, this is reload. The nice thing about reload is that you don't have to. You don't have to wait for it to dry or haze up or anything like that. The application is super simple and super fast. So once, but you're going to want to apply reload after the car is completely buffed clear of any sort of dry residue from the waterless wash. You don't want to put this on top of the, a thick film of, thick film of waterless wash, because then you're not really getting reload to bond to the surface that you want it to bond to and protect. So once the car is completely washed up, buffed dry, and it's completely clean, and you're due for reload, then that's where we move on here. And I have 2 towels. They're the same kind, but one's flipped inside out, and this one has, or the short nap side out, and this is the thick nap side out. So with the short nap side, I like to use this for using reload or applying reload. And the way that you do that, again, just shake it up really, really well. Reload tends to separate also, but it's just good practice. Make a habit of it, then you don't ever have to remember. It's just going to be second nature. So what I like to do is I like to spray a little reload and prime my microfiber towel. And not usually do I spray it on the car. I usually kind of just use the microfiber towel, but for demonstration purposes, again, I'm going to go ahead and spray it on the car. But you just spray a light mist. You get this would be your dry towel, the thick nap one, but the short nap towel is going to be used to spread reload. So again, this is primed, and the reason why you prime it is just because whenever you go over, the sprayed reload on this panel, then it's going to suck it up and it's going to soak it into the microfiber as opposed to spreading it. So we want to spread it and apply it correctly. And this is as simple as it is. You just spread it. Make sure that whatever area you're trying to cover is completely covered. Once it's spread, then you just buff it off. And you're going to want to buff it off immediately. Reload tends to be a little difficult to buff off if you let dry for too long. That's it. Now your whatever surface it is, your paint, you could use this on wheels. Again, reload, like with the waterless wash, can be used on all exterior surfaces. Again, that's glass, plastic, paint, metal. The clear film is obviously what we're applying it to on this fender. But that's again just as simple as it is. There's no waiting to buff off, waited for it to dry to a haze or anything like that. It's effortless. You're not having to work hard at all. Again, once you get into your second or third application, I'm sure you'll have it down, and you can knock out a reload application in another 20 minutes. So all in all, you're probably looking at about an hour once you get everything down, and it's very simple. You use this method, you're out of the elements, you're not sweating in the sun, and you're not freezing in the winter, and this gives you the safest option to properly care for your car. If there's water restrictions, you just don't feel like, or the sun's out and you don't want to wash out in the sun because you're fearful that you're going to water spot your car. So this gives you that other option that's going to be the safest way to address cleaning your car properly and safely. One of the things I also want to say, so I like to use reload on all the paint first. And the reason why is just because, again, this stuff is fairly inexpensive, but we don't want to go ahead and just waste it if we don't have to. And by the time you're done with the entire car using your reload, this is going to be pretty saturated. And once it's saturated, then what you can do is afterward, this is going to have enough product in it that you can go ahead and do your glass without having to re-wet it or use any more reload. But again, so for the video, I sprayed it on the fender. But normally, what I like to do to avoid overspray on a panel that I had already sealed, I'll just add some more to reload. Add some more to this microfiber towel, spread it, and then go ahead and buff it dry. If you're having trouble, depending on the temperature, humidity, it can vary, and you're going to want to take mental notes whenever you're applying reload, and same with the waterless wash. If it's you know, I'd say below 75 degrees and pretty dry out, you have a little bit of a greater window to, you know, buff off reload without it starting to dry and streak on you. But you'll just have to minimize your work area if it starts to, you know, evaporate too quickly and it's a struggle to buff it off. The way that this all is set up is to be user friendly. So if it's not working well for you, then you're probably using it incorrectly. You can go back to this video as a reference to see what you might be doing wrong. You can email me, text me, call me pretty much any time, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can and answer any sort of questions for you. Yeah, that's basically it. That's as easy as it gets. But now that we've done the waterless wash and the reload application after, you know, every 4 to 6 weeks, we'll just talk about reset real quick. And this is the Auto Shampoo by Car Pro as well. And what's nice about this shampoo is that it was designed to work with nano coatings like C-Quartz. And how it does that is that this shampoo itself leaves no surfactants behind. There's no films or anything that is going to, you know, hinder the performance of your C-Quartz coating or your ClearGuard Nano film, being that it's hydrophobic and self-cleaning. If you use any other shampoos, the downside to it, to them, is that they leave a little film behind, and then that's going to whatever water or anything else that hits it, it's going to be acting on that top layer as opposed to your coating and your ClearGuard Nano. So what's really nice about Reset shampoo is that it rinses completely clean. And there's, as long as you don't let it dry on the surface, obviously, but once you go with your final rinse, you know, it rinses completely clean, then you can move right into reload application after you know, washing like this. But this shampoo is going to be used as a substitute for the waterless wash if your car is just too dirty. If your car is too dirty, you haven't washed it in, you know, weeks, which I wouldn't recommend. I normally like to say that, you know, weekly washing is best, especially if you keep up on top of it. It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick to take care of, and it's only going to make your coating and film last longer as well. Because, you know, whatever elements that are on it, you know, road grime and all the nasty stuff that gets picked up and thrown up on your car through rainstorms or whatever, you know, there's pretty corrosive stuff out on the road with coolant and oil dripping, and, you know, brake dust itself is corrosive. So all that stuff plays a huge role in degradation of all these surfaces over time. UV protection is also another you know, big concern with applying reload often, and staying on top of that is just because, again, it's cheap insurance. It's going to make your product, or whatever product you have on your car, C-Quartz or the film or whatever else it is, even just a regular sealant, you know, it's going to increase the durability and longevity of it, you know, tenfold. So the other thing that I didn't say is that reload can be used on raw paint. It's actually a fantastic sealant just to use as a standalone for any other cars that you might have. So just forgot to mention that. But your Reset shampoo is going to be a substitute for this, like I said. So if it's too dirty, you're going to want to do your Reset shampoo, just because this is you know, it lubricates almost, I mean, about as good, if not maybe a little bit better. So, but the good thing about it is that you're just using much more water. You could do a full pre-rinse on your car before you actually put the mitt to it. But instead of putting your waterless wash in your soap bucket, you're going to be using this. And this is, I believe, 1.5. I like to use 2 ounces per 5-gallon bucket. So you'll fill this up to the top in your wash bucket, and then your soap bucket, your rinse bucket, excuse me, is going to be about halfway, 3 gallons or so. And I like to put a little Reset in there also. Just again, this stuff is, I don't know, 20-25 bucks a bottle. It's, you know, stupid cheap, and it's much better to waste, again, a little bit more of this than to have to risk damaging your car. But even during your reset shampoo, full-blown wash with the hose and the pressure washer or whatever, it might even be a good idea just to use some of this waterless wash. Since you already have some mixed up and it's handy all the time, I would recommend keeping a bottle of this in your car. You can pre-soak, just pre-soak the car after after you're done with the rinse. Then you could just spray down each panel just so you get some lubrication on there before your wash mitt ever even touches it. And that's just taking an extra step to ensure that you're not going to damage or mar the surface. Now, a lot of this stuff might seem like OCD, or I've taken a little too far, but maybe I don't know. That's just kind of how I do things, and you can feel free to modify this process however you feel is necessary. This is just what I use for my cars and my clients' cars, just because I found that this is the safest method to use and go by. Like I said, you make habit of it, then it's very simple. There's no guessing what to do next, whatever. It's just going to come second nature to you, and it's going to be very, very quick. I think that's about it. I apologize for this video being probably not of the most highest quality, and this is just a single take, first time doing this. So at some point I plan to revisit this with a better quality camera and maybe fill in some areas where I might have messed up and left some information out. So once I get that uploaded, then we'll send it over to you. But at least for now, for the interim, this will help to give you some sort of material to look back on in case you have anything, any questions, and you want to kind of see how I do things. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to give me a call, email me, text me, whatever works, and I'll help you out as best I can. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.